Hey, it's Andrea. Today, Wesley should have died a handful of times throughout this episode. Shereese can speak Ewok. And we ask the question, why does the security aboard the Enterprise suck so bad? Stay tuned to find out.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the number one place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek, The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
Hey, I'm your co-host, Andrea. Today we're talking Season 2, Episode 10, entitled The Dauphin. This episode was written by Leonard Mlodinow and Scott Rubinstein, directed by Rob Bowman. I don't have a start date on this because it kind of just starts. And we don't have a captain's log or anything.
That's fair because star dates don't mean anything anyways.
Yeah, they're meaningless. All right, so here's the synopsis for the Dauphin. Celia, an alien princess who beams aboard the Enterprise, must learn to accept her responsibility as a mediator in a planetary dispute and sacrifice a chance to live her own life. She's accompanied by her governess and protector, Anya, a shape-shifting alien woman who warns a smitten Wesley Crusher to stay away from the girl, fearing she will be encouraged to stay aboard the Enterprise and relinquish her royal duties. The reason that this episode was is entitled The Dauphin is because the Dauphin is a French word meaning the heir to the throne. So she has this like sort of royal princessy duty that's kind of a little nebulous. But so Celia is the Dauphin in this episode.
Yeah, and what's interesting about it is that she's destined to bring peace to this divided world, right, to Daled 4. And on this divided world, as we're talking about it on the bridge, Data describes that it's the difference between night and day, which Riker thinks is a colloquialism, but then Data quickly corrects him and says, no, I mean, literally, it's the difference between night and day. Half of the planet is perpetually in daylight, half of the planet is perpetually at nighttime because of the rotation of the axis around its sun, around that planet's sun. And so it makes sense that those two cultures would evolve very differently, either always living in sunlight or never having any sunlight. And there would be animosity between them, perhaps because they're different. And Data also points that out, like just because they're different, they're going to go to war. That's often what beings do. And so somehow Celia is supposed to bridge the divide between these two halves of her people and bring some kind of peace. And we don't know how she's going to do that. It's kind of like, it reminds me of the Where Silence Has Lease, where there was that deaf interpreter, the peacekeeper, whose job was to bring peace to these warring factions. And we have no idea how.
I think you mean Loud as a Whisper.
Loud as a Whisper. Yes, that is what I mean. Exactly. Yes. Loud as a Whisper. So it's kind of like in Loud as a Whisper, where that deaf interpreter and peacekeeper comes to bring peace to those two different warring nations. Where we don't really know how the heck he's supposed to do that. We just trust that he does that. And I think what's really nice about this episode is I don't really care how she's going to do that. Like that feels to me like a very appropriate side story that doesn't really need to be resolved for me.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a MacGuffin. I mean, it's there to drive the episode,
right?
We don't know how she's accomplishing that piece, and we don't care either because her experience that we care about is what we see on the Enterprise. So just one little piece of trivia. One of the main TNG screenwriters, Maurice Hurley, said of this episode, it wasn't his favorite because he says, quote, "We're dealing with a monster show and we don't do well with monsters. The idea was good, but the execution didn't work. If we had more time, I think that show would have been better," end quote. And I got that from Captain's Logs, The Unauthorized Complete Trek Voyages by Edward Gross and Mark A. Altman. It's a book that I picked up, $4 used. Thank you. Whoop, I love used books. But it is a treasure trove of behind the scenes information for all of Star Trek from the original series up to Voyager. So it was published a couple of years ago. But anyway, I agreed with him. I love this episode. It is one of my favorites. I love Wesley. I know a lot of people don't. I love this. I do agree, though, that the transition in and out of monster, it didn't look great. And I don't think it's going to continue to age very well. But the overall idea is amazing.
I I agree and I disagree. I agree that the monsters were kind of comical and ridiculous. They were not good monster makeups. And they do better with the humanoid aliens. That being said, it didn't bother me because the storyline, I was so ooh, but what's going to happen here? What's going to happen there? It was weird and a little clunky, but it wasn't disturbing. Unlike the episode Too Short a Season in season 1, where that guy had the old guy makeup. And the makeup job was so bad to me that it was distracting.
Yes.
I mean, to be fair, he was in that old guy makeup for most of the episode because he was like, reverse Benjamin buttoning or whatever. But here the monsters only happen from time to time. And so you're kind of like,
yes,
okay. I don't know. Like the monsters weren't great. And also they weren't there enough for it to be distracting the whole episode.
I agree. I don't love the monster makeup and the monster costumes, but we only see it for a couple of seconds
here and there
twice. Yeah. So it's really not a big deal. So let's just jump right in. The Enterprise approaches Clavdia 3. And I don't know if you noticed this, but I had to pause and kind of take this in. Right around the 1 minute mark, we see this very odd shot that we never see again. It's a shot on the bridge of the main view screen, but it is shot like between Riker and Picard's shoulder. So somebody basically had the camera down by like Worf's knees, kind of. And like, yeah, it was really weird. Like you could see like the bridge itself, like the panel that Worf leans on, and Picard and Riker's like back and shoulders. And I was like, that's weird. I have never seen that kind of shot before, and I don't remember ever seeing it again. So if you want to see something a little different, right around the 1 minute mark, there it is. So they go to this planet, and did you notice when Picard meets, or when he like leaves to go to the transporter room to like meet Celia and Anya, he leaves Data in command. And I don't know if you noticed, but every time Data sits in the command chair, he immediately starts pushing the buttons on those little panels.
Yeah, he's like adjusting his seat, I think. making it when you get in a car that's like a smart technology car and it like moves to the height of your legs or whatever. I'm just guessing that's what he's doing when he's like doop doop doop, transfer command to Data, move the seat.
He always does that. And I was like, gosh, Picard like rarely ever uses those buttons. So of course I started spiraling and I was like, well, what are those buttons for? What do they do? So I went online and I did some research and I found out. So those of you who are wondering with bated breath what the buttons on Picard's chair do, let me tell you. So the panel on the right arm of the chair is been designed for log entries, library, computer access and retrieval, view screen controls, and intercoms. That's a lot. And then the left arm of the chair is equipped with a panel that could be flipped open to reveal backup con, ops panels, armament, and shield controls. So like one is for like battle and one is just for like
information.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say that I have I gave myself the gift of a VR headset for no good reason other than I wanted one. And I did buy a Star Trek game where if you play solo, you play as the captain. If you play like online with people, they each take a part of the crew. But anyways, playing solo, I do have the panel controls for the right and the left side. And you do have control of like ops and engineering and all this different stuff. As the captain, you can like command them like go to warp or do this or whatever. It's super fascinating. Like, yeah, what's Data doing? I don't know.
Is it like Star Trek TNG?
It actually has the original series and TNG and one other ship that's just for the game. So you have 3 different ships that you can pilot. And they're all, their cons do different things. Like the buttons are in different places. Their panels are different. Their information screens are different. It's really hard. And I spent a good solid hour being killed by Klingons and the Borg over and over and over.
Okay,
FYI.
what is the name of this game? I'm so interested to know what it is.
I think it's called Star Trek.
Oh, okay. They didn't really exactly stretch the boundaries.
There might be a subtitle, I don't recall. Something like
Maybe
Star Trek,
The Game?
Captain's Voyage, right?
Okay.
So here's the funny thing about the game, and we're probably going to cut all of this, but that episode, The Game, has Ashley Judd in it, but I thought this was the episode with Ashley Judd. So when Celia came on board, I was like, what? Who's that?
Who the heck is that?
Ashley? Yeah, I was like, what? And then I was like, I'm so confused. And then it took me a minute to be like, oh, that's a totally separate episode with Wesley and a young girl. Totally separate. So anyways.
So they bring aboard this delegate, Celia, and she's young and she's pretty and she's well informed on transporter technology and the schematics of the ship.
She totally fits with the Starfleet like curiosity bug.
Yes, she's excited to be aboard the Enterprise and wants a tour. And then her protector, her governess, Anya, quickly shoots her down. And Celia is like so bummed. And like Wesley is off doing some errand for Geordi and has the super magnet with him. And when he sees Celia, he gets the little heart eyes and little hearts start floating up above his head, like in Charlie Brown.
Totally. And it's so sweet.
He's so smitten with her. And I love that she not only like checks him out, but then very quickly, and I thought, you go girl, very quickly came up with a reason to go over and talk to him. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's a blah, blah, blah super magnet, and be careful because it can pull the lead right out of your blood. I was like, this girl knows what she's doing. Like, way to go. Because Wesley was just staring at her, drooling after her retreating figure. And she made something happen. I was like, you go, Celia. Of course, Anya wasn't none too pleased. She was
of course, but she wasn't pleased about anything ever. Nope. So so Celia's like, oh, look at this, and oh, look at that. And Anya's like, no looking at anything. Get into your room right now.
Yes.
And I love these heart eyes. You know, I was trying to recall how I felt when I saw this episode back in the 80s, and I don't remember, but I know I had a huge crush on Wesley Crusher, which is only eclipsed by my huge crush on Will Wheaton today. But I know I had a huge crush on Wesley back then. And I was like, I bet you I watched this episode full of jealousy because Leah is like so awesome and she's pretty and she's smart. And like me as like a 6-year-old, I totally could not have competed with her whatsoever for his affections. But watching as an adult, I'm just like, oh my gosh, everything about it is so sweet. It's just so sweet.
It's very sweet. And if I could even just take a step back and look at like the costume design for Celia and Anya, Celia's costuming is so spectacular. I mean, they made her look futuristic. She only wore the one outfit for the whole trip.
Yep.
But she had like, it almost looked like armament, sort of like corseting, like in the front, but the rest of the costume was very feminine and draped. And I thought,
it really reminded me of Queen Amidala's dress in, gosh, I don't remember which Star Wars this was. I guess it had to be episode 2. But she has a dress very similar to that, where it's like it's like, I guess it's like a dress or pants, or I don't know. It's like this one piece that goes all the way to the floor, but it's beautiful and feminine and draped, and it's got the back low. It's just, that was really pretty.
We really appreciate some good sets and costume design. Absolutely.
And Anya's costume was perfect because she basically looked like a nun, a space nun.
She did. She looked like a nun, but the greenish.
But it was like armor too.
Yes, it was armor, and she almost looked like lizard-like because it was like almost like a green, and it covered her head and everything too. This like dark green like mesh almost. It was very, very cool. So let's jump up to the bridge for a second. Troy, in one of the very few lines she has in this episode, says she has some reservations about the guests on board. She says their emotions do not fit who they are. They're not who they appear to be. And I thought this was a good call for Troy.
Yeah.
Not only was it a good line, it was perfect for Troy to be the one to say that, but I love that she was the one alerting the captain. Something isn't quite right. With who these two guests are. They're not who they appear to be. And when Picard is like, all right, well, let me check in on Celia. Celia is very cute. She's talking to the captain of the starship, and she's like, who was that boy that I met? Like, if I were Picard, I'd be like, I don't know who you met. Like,
right. What boy? We only have the one boy who probably was there.
Well,
considering school,
considering you have kids, exactly. Considering you have a bunch of kids on the ship, it could have been one of hundreds of boys, but I don't know. So he does say like, oh, that was Wesley. But then Anya walks into the room, and Celia quickly changes the conversation. And
she's
ends
like,
the conversation.
Thank you so much for this lovely accommodations. You know, she switches to being very like proper and
yeah. And I thought, Anya, you're being such a cock block right now. Like, just
totally.
Which, I mean, I guess that's her job, but
that's
like, dude.
Literally her job to be no fun. And Celia, the whole time she's just like, man, like this is the only time in my entire existence I will ever be on a starship ever. Can I take a tour? Like this is the only time. And she's just like, no tour for you. Ugh. Can I talk to Wesley? No. Can I do anything? No. Sit down, be quiet. It's just like, but this is my only time in my entire life. Like that's got to be so painful.
I really felt for her. I felt for her because she has been on this hyper isolated world for 16 years. And then now she's going to this other hyper isolated world for the rest of her life to do a job she doesn't know how she's going to do. And she's going to be all alone doing it. She won't be able to leave the goddamn planet. And she's on the starship. Just let her go to the holodeck for an hour. It's not that big a deal. Like you're overreacting just a smidge, don't you think?
Yeah. But she's afraid that anything could happen and Anya could be killed and the planets will be destroyed or something. So she takes her job very seriously.
I guess that's true. She'd make a great security chief or something.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we know that Celia is destined to rule Daled 4, and they have that war, and she doesn't know how she's going to do it.
Wesley knows none of this. All he knows is like pretty girl. Next thing you know, we cut to Wesley checking his hair.
Which is already perfect and always was perfect.
Because that space moose is like legit. Like he does not have one hair out of place, but he's checking his hair. And he calls in Data to get the 411 on this girl. Like he's doing the same thing she was doing with the captain. Who's that girl? Tell me all about her. And Data's just like, she's a girl. You know, he's very like, there's nothing to say.
He has no idea.
I love how Geordi's like, Wes, are you okay? Like, did something happen to you? And he's like, why wouldn't I be okay? Where are you? You're supposed to go down, pick up the metal, pick up the magnet, come right back. Where are you? And he's like, oh, yeah.
He's been gone for hours.
Yeah. And I just thought that's really cute that he like literally forgot what he was even doing.
Yes.
When he saw her.
He sort of became like Barkley, where Geordi's like, damn it, now I got to chase you down like to do your job. So
I want to fire this man.
Yeah. Let's transfer him and have Maddox do a bunch of experiments on him. Like, that's it.
That's a throwback to last week's episode.
Yeah.
If you did not hear it, go back and listen to that one. It was great. It was awesome.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Really quickly though, before Geordi is running these tests and like dealing with Wesley, in Celia's quarters, we see Celia talking to a young woman who seems to know her like very well.
Who's like her best friend.
Yes.
And you're like, where did this girl come from?
Yes. The only
is this
two
like
people
a
beamed
imagination?
aboard.
Yeah. I was thinking like, is this a hallucination? Is this a hologram? Like, is this like some thought projection thing that they can do in their culture? And I also thought her sweater dress is dope. Like that dress that her best friend was wearing or whatever that outfit was. I think it was a dress.
It was like a sweater pants.
It was like a sweater
onesie or something.
I don't know. Just watch the scene. I want that outfit and I want that body in that outfit. I want those two things.
Well, I want that hair. I want that hair too because it was spectacular.
Yeah.
But I have curly girl hair problems. My hair is always a frizzy mess. So whenever I see someone with nice hair, I'm like, oh, one day I'm gonna have nice hair. And then I go, oh yeah, my hair's never gonna change. So whatever. It's a pipe dream, Andrea. You'll never have nice hair. Anyway, so we realize that like we hear kind of like a sizzle sound, and then suddenly the girl is gone, and it's like a little Ewok. You're like, what the hell's going on?
And with a little Ewok, I also thought, this is more what I pictured for a Targ. Something weird like this. Not so much like a boar with like some spikes taped on its back. Yeah, like I pictured something like this. Like some kind of legit like weird monster thing. I didn't picture this exactly, but I thought it'd be something very like alien.
Yeah, like Ewok-y.
Yeah, so the best friend turns into an Ewok and you're like, what the?
Yeah, so we realize it's Anya, and we're like, ooh, she's some sort of shapeshifter or something.
Or has multiple personalities. Because each one of these creatures are totally different. Like the way the best friend's talking to Celia is completely different from the way that Anya talks to Celia.
Totally. She talks to her like she's friends instead of like her mother.
Right.
Yeah.
And then who knows what the Ewok was saying.
Well, yeah, my universal translator was not up and running for that one. Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, that was pretty good, Shereese. I can't do that.
I've been practicing.
All right, so this is where we see Geordi's running his tests. And did you notice the computer voice is male again? When are they going to iron this out?
I don't know.
The computer voice is male for one sentence. Okay, so then Wesley's up on the catwalk running the tests.
And really, he's just shooting a beam over and over and over and over at the same spot.
Well, he's on that glass catwalk, and I went back to Heart of Glory, and I was like, watch out! That floor can give way at any second. You come crashing down.
Any minute. You'll be in the warp core.
Yes.
Bye-bye. Rest in peace, Wesley.
So that's the end of our show. That's how it should have ended. This is a version of how it should have ended. So Wesley is like so distracted. He can't do his job. He's asking Geordi how can I talk to Celia? And I love when Geordi gets impatient. I love impatient Geordi. He's like, I don't have time for this right now. I've got dilithium crystals to something. I've got a warp core to like blast with something. I don't have time for your shit.
I like when he like dismisses Wesley because he's like, you're no good to us. You're full of hormones.
Just leave.
Just leave. And then he tells him, and take the ladder. Like, I don't even trust you to take that open door elevator. You could fall right out in your face again, end up in the warp core. Rest in peace, Wesley. You take the ladder, buddy, and get on out of here.
I love that he said that. And did you notice how Wesley, he slid down the ladder like fucking like Dennis the Menace? Yeah, I was like, I did. So you can't even do that well. You can't even do that carefully right now. He's like, oh, jump down. I'm a man in love. Da-da. Like, rest in peace, Wesley.
Yeah. But I love that scene where he's like asking Geordi for girl advice, and he's just like, go talk to her, go say hello, tell her your name, then talk about whatever comes to your mind. Look, man, I am busy. I'm working here. Yeah. Go ask someone else. And also, the very next scene
is Worf screaming like a banshee on the bridge. Screaming.
I had to pause the episode because I was laughing so hard. I was like, what just happened? And then he's like, and that's how you do it. I was like, you go to Worf. You go to Worf for your dating advice? Why on earth?
There's a couple of problems with this scene. Number one, why would you go to somebody who's on duty to ask them like random love advice?
On the bridge in front of everybody.
Don't do that. Number two, Worf screaming like a klaxon whale on the bridge. You would never do that while on duty. And also nobody even bothered glancing over to see what the hubbub was about.
I mean, Data did, since he had the bridge at that moment. So Data was kind of like, huh. Yeah, because then afterwards he's just like, Worf, I don't think that's going to work for me. And Data goes, yeah, but you guys are compatible because your histocompatibility complexes on the outside of your cells would match, and he's like, I want to talk to her, not dissect her.
Yes.
Like, Data, I don't think you're the right mentor either.
No.
And I just thought and I guess it does make sense that he would go to these people on duty because first of all, they're always on duty. But secondly, he's clearly not thinking thinking straight, right? Because he was asking Geordi while Geordi's trying to do work, and then he goes to ask Worf while he's just like,
Geordi was clearly like, I'm too busy,
and Worf is like, I can help you out. Yeah, Worf is like, I can help you out with that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Speaking of like finding the right person, there was only one choice ever on like getting flirting advice, and that's Riker.
And that's Riker. And I was like, why didn't he go to Riker in the first place?
Yes.
Worf should have never been on that tour.
No.
He should have just gone straight to Riker.
He should have seen Worf and just kept walking. Okay. Like, just keep going. That's clearly not the right stuff.
But that is kind of sweet that he's just asking anybody. That shows how how unaware he is.
That is sort of, I mean, haven't we all kind of been there? We're all talking to people about, I met somebody and oh my gosh, and it's like maybe not the right time.
Starbucks. And you're like, can't
those poor bartenders are like, oh, here comes so-and-so again talking about this person they met. So how fantastic is that scene when Riker is teaching Wesley how to flirt and he's flirting with Guinan, and Guinan is giving as good as she's getting. She's amazing. It was like, I mean, and I love that Wesley very clearly was like, okay, this is like so overly dramatic.
It took about 30 seconds for Wesley to be like, this is not my style either. And he's like, you can see his face and he's like, hello, can I? And they're just like, not even, they're so lost in their flirting. And then he finally breaks in and is like, guys, I just don't think this is my style either. To which Guinan replies, shut up, kid. And I was like, aw, another shut up, Wesley. And then he's just like, okay. And he just kind of gets him and walks away, and they're still just going at it. Like, tell me more about my eyes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I kind of want to have that as a recording to listen to, because the back and forth,
the banter.
The banter and like the rat-a-tat is so spot on and it's so perfect. And I love that Guinan and Riker are totally doing it for Wesley's benefit, but they're clearly having so much fun. It's almost like a little battle of the wits, kind of continuing it's like playing like conversational hot potato where you got to keep the ball rolling. Yeah. And they do it so well. So Wesley's like, forget this. I'm just going to kind of take matters into my own hands, and I'm just going to go over to her quarters. Meanwhile, all this is going on, Anya is like just being prickly as hell with everybody. And she investigates.
She's taking a tour of the ship, right? Because she wants to see if there are any dangers or anything at all that could pose a danger to Celia. So she's doing she says she wants to do a tour, which makes me picture she just wants to see the ship. But it turns out, no, she wants to see if there are any dangers on the ship. So she's going to investigate every nook and cranny of that ship.
Yes, she is. And she sees Geordi doing the work that Wesley was supposed to be doing. And she takes the elevator up there and starts interrogating him. And he's like, look, lady, I just really need to get this done. And she
Mhm.
says, I will come back later and check on your progress. And I had such a shiver run down my spine because that is what my Saturday mornings as a kid was like when we had chores to do. And if my
Mhm.
mom and dad got a wild hair up their butt and they said, I'm going to come back and inspect your work, it was like, ah, damn, I'm not going anywhere this weekend. I'm going to be cleaning all weekend. Like that for me was like, oh, you are screwed now, Geordi. She is not going to forget. She's going to come back and check your work with like a white glove.
Seriously. And I thought she is like the definition of busybody. You are not in charge here, lady. You are not in charge of any of this. You, friend, are a guest. You are being transported from point A to point B. This tour is a gift for you to see the ship, not for you to inspect the ship and tell the ship people like what they could be doing better. I was just like, get out of here. You just see Geordi like, ugh. And then Worf being like, come on back down, Anya. You need to come with me now. Like, you need to leave.
Poor Geordi is like, for the second time of the day, being like, listen, I've got work to do. I don't have time to be chatting with you.
Why? Again, we need locks on these doors. Stop letting people into engineering. We have work to do here, people.
Yes. Although engineering, you get there by hallways, so I don't know, but still, yeah, I know what you mean. Though we need to keep people out of certain areas. So Wesley does find his way to Celia's quarters, and she thankfully again saves Wesley because he's just staring at her agog, and she's like, can you help me figure out the replicator? Knowing full, she knows how to use the replicator.
Yeah, she's a genius.
She's trying to help him out. So he comes in,
and she's being guarded by the worst guard ever. Because he immediately lets Wesley in, and then 2 minutes later lets them both out.
Yes.
What is he guarding exactly? You're not supposed to guard the room, sir. You're supposed to guard the person in the room.
Again, the number of issues that Enterprise security has is enough to bring down the entire Federation of planets. We've got Sele and Antikin delegates killing each other and playing laser tag. We've got Klingons taking children hostage. We've got people being guarded that aren't really being guarded. I mean, security is a joke on the Enterprise.
And this is the flagship, people. So I feel like security is like the least trained arm of every part of this ship.
Yes. Speaking of which, so Wesley helps Celia like replicate some chocolate. This is upsetting to me. She takes one taste with her finger and then they leave it on the replicator stand and like take off to go to the holodeck. And I just thought, all that chocolate going to waste. It made me sad.
But I'm pretty sure, again, you can recycle it. What I thought was like, oh, the replicators didn't make any spoons. That's kind of what I thought. My first thought was like, where's the silverware? But yeah, you learn in, actually, I don't know if we learn this ever in TNG, but we do learn in Voyager that everything on the ship gets recycled and ends up kind of back in the replicator. So all that entire dish and stuff, they can just push the button and it just kind of goes back into light energy or whatever and can be made something else later on, which is kind of cool. There's not really, there's no waste on the ship. Like even if you use the bathroom, all of that waste gets like recycled and turned into like boots and clothes and stuff like that.
That's pretty crazy and good to know because I was a little sad. I was a little sad about the loss of the chocolate.
The loss of the chocolate. Yeah. Understandable.
Okay. Can we talk again about how poor security is? Because Anya is on this tour with Worf and she sees a sick patient in sickbay. Also, why would sickbay be on the tour? That we don't need to see that.
Well, because she's inspecting everything. So she just wants to see what everything is because she's going to give it her stamp of approval or really more likely her stamp of disapproval.
Yes.
So she probably was like, I need to see sickbay and see if it's up to snuff. And of course you find a sick person in sickbay. That's what it's for.
Yes. And
she goes in
immediately destroyed because he might be contagious. And I went, destroyed? We're just going to kill a patient because, and Pulaski is not that helpful. She's like, no, there's a ton of, there's air filters and stuff. So the chance of like any contagion spreading is like very small. And Anya immediately overreacts because that's what she does. Mm-hmm. And she morphs into this big monster. Mm-hmm. And Pulaski hits her comm badge and she goes, security emergency to sickbay. And who walks in as part of the security emergency?
But fucking
Captain Picard.
I thought the same thing. I was like,
why are you there?
I was like, why is Picard rolling with the security team? What are you doing right now? If there is an emergency where someone could die, you need to be the last person showing up on the scene.
Yes. You need to be way out of like firing range. And then you just get somebody just comes up to the bridge and tells you like, okay, it's under control now. You don't need to be in the line of fire, Picard. That's just no.
That's crazy. Yeah. I thought this was one of those moments where I feel like Picard was just like strolling by and heard the like security to the, to
sick bay.
Yes. I was like the medical room. So Picard's just rolling, just like walking down the hallway, and then he hears security to sick bay. And then he's like, hey guys, what's going on? I feel like it was kind of that kind of moment, like, hey, what's going on? And he just like rolls in with security. And I'm like, buddy, like, this is not a call you should take.
No.
But they needed him to be there for the purposes of the scene. So he could talk Anya off the ledge of like just going totally Hulk on everybody and ripping everyone's throats out.
Which I think is funny because each time we see Anya, both times as like a scary monster, she doesn't do any monsterly things. She just kind of stands there screaming as a monster. It's like she's not.
Well, she did start to like mess with Worf, and it's that whole Worf effect you talked about, right? Because she like picks him up and like knocks the phaser out of his hand and stuff, and you're like, oh man, if she can beat Worf, she could beat anybody.
Yes, that's true.
And then Picard's like, wait. Let us all just talk about this. And then she kind of like demorphs and goes back into the Anya personality. And then she's just like, very well then. And you're like, what just happened?
Yes.
And then Picard's like, you're confined to quarters because you're just wilding out. And while you're on my ship, like while you're on my ship, you're going to follow my rules. And like, I realize you can morph and kill us all. But guess what? You're not getting to Daled 4 if you morph and kill us all. You're just not getting there. So you got to go to quarters. And she's just like, fine, I'll go to my quarters if you say so. Fine, I don't care. And then they're just kind of like chit-chatting, like, what was that? Oh my gosh. And I just thought, you have no way to fight this monster. And you're just taking her pinky promise that she's going to stay in her quarters. Like, we need some more procedures here.
Which she clearly breaks, like, just a number of minutes later. Because Anya is ordered to stay in her quarters and remain in her human shape. And she's like, fine, I will. And then that's kind of that. Meanwhile, Celia and Wes are visiting worlds on the holodeck, and then they're in 10 forward gallivanting around. And Celia's getting more and more exposed to these like new ideas and new places and becoming more and more upset about the prospect of living another isolated life on Daled 4. And she runs out of 10 forward, and Wesley follows, and there's dramatic crying in the hallways.
And I love that part too. She runs out because she's so upset that she'll never have this life that Wesley keeps saying, you'll have this life, and she won't. She runs out crying, and Guinan quickly rushes over and is just like, Wesley, just because a woman runs away doesn't mean she doesn't want to be followed. So again, she's not telling him like, go after her, but she is kind of being like, this is what you do in this situation.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he's like, oh, okay. Because he didn't know he was supposed to do that. And I thought that was really a sweet moment too. And so he's like chasing her like, wait, what did I do? What I thought was funny is as he's chasing her, he's like screaming at her while she's running down the hall, like, Celia, wait! Ah! And I was like, yeah, maybe Guinan needed to give him a few more pointers of how exactly.
He's like, wait a minute now, Wesley, before you chase after, let me give you at least this pad with like information, and you can digest.
Chase after her and calmly speak to her. Don't scream at her at the top of your lungs in the middle of the hallway, because that might make things a little worse.
Your workplace.
Yes. Yeah. But anyways, it's all learning.
Yeah, so Anya quickly catches up with them, and Picard is saying like, Wesley, step away from her. They're confined to quarters. And I love that Picard later has that moment with Wesley where he's like, look, far be it from me to tell any of my crewmen or anybody under my command what kind of personal relationships they should and shouldn't have, or like how they should sort of like have those personal relationships. But for the sake of the safety of everybody aboard the ship, I kind of need you to like stay away from Celia. And Wesley is so sad, but he does it. It's Celia who sneaks out to see Wesley, and they share that little kiss.
Yeah, because Celia's like, F this. Like, she's been trying to get out from underneath Anya's thumb this whole time.
Yeah.
Her one little starship ride of her life.
Yep.
She's been trying to do this, but Wesley does like honor his word. He does.
Yes. So Anya falls asleep. Celia sneaks out. She crawls out a window apparently or something.
Or turns into like the size of like a mite and then just jumps out of the room and then morphs again. They said that she morphed so small that no one noticed that she left. Like Picard says that later on. And that's why they put up a force field, because they're like, so that way, no matter what size she changes into, she can't just slip out. But yeah, so she, and I love when she sneaks out and she goes to Wes, because she's just like, he's like, how did, Anya let you leave? And she's like, of course, I have rights. And he's like, so you snuck out? And she's like, yes, I waited for her to go to sleep. It's like, you didn't do anything
one kid to another.
Yeah, totally.
It's one kid to another being like, how did you get out? I crawled out the window. How did you get out? I went through the basement or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, okay. So they do have this little kiss. And then of course, Anya shows up. And for a scary monster, she's just doing a bunch of screaming. She does say later, like, I wasn't actually trying to hurt him. I just wanted to scare him. So Wesley is like, what the fuck? Right? Like, there's just a lot going on. And then Celia tries to defend Wesley, and then she turns into a monster. So now Celia can do it too. And you're like, uh-oh. They're both this whole time, shapeshifters.
I thought it was just Anya who was the shapeshifter, because Anya was turning into so many different personalities. I thought, well, if she had to be on that planet for 16 years, maybe Anya is different people. Like, she has the ability not just to take the form of these different people, but is really those different people, like the best friend who talks to her as a friend, the mom who talks to her as, all of that. So I thought maybe because she's some special protector, she has this ability to be every type of companion that, or like multiple types of companions that Celia might need. And then when Celia transforms, I was like, oh, wait a minute. So wait, this is just how their people are. All of them can transform, I guess. And for Wesley, like, poor thing, because he's also like, oh crap. Like, and he jumps in front of Celia, like, to protect her. And then when Celia transforms, he's just like peeing his pants. So now he's got two giant monsters in his room, like battling it out. And she's just like, run. And where's he supposed to go? Because Anya's definitely right in front of the door.
He just kind of like falls onto a couch.
He just curls there you up, go. Holds his knees, rocks back and forth, says it's all a dream. And he's just
tries to wake up,
and he feels, which I don't know how you would feel in this situation. I don't know how I would feel, but he feels lied to. He feels like Celia totally tricked him because she wasn't human and she was pretending to be, is how he feels about the situation. And so he's like, was everything a lie? Was any of this true? Was this just some game that you're playing with my heart?
I would totally feel the way that Wesley felt. I think I would feel the same way too. I would be shocked, and I think I would get over it. But there's a conversation that would need to happen there. Like, so our practice is to do this and this and this, and there was no deception meant. But just to find out that somebody you care about is not who they say they are, or is a lot more than you think they are. It's like, wait a second, because now that forces you to re-examine who they are. And it's like, do I even like you knowing this newer information? I think I would feel really betrayed. I would. Poor Wesley.
Yeah, poor Wesley. And poor Celia too, because she really, really liked Wesley just as much as Wesley liked her. And she just, is trying to, she's facing down a life of isolation as the ruler of a world she's never seen. And she's just got a lot on her plate. And now she's getting this taste of like, that's amazing freedom and exploration. Of course, she's on a ship full of scientists, right? Who are just all explorers, and that's like the one thing she can't do. And she's in this situation where she's seeing this life she can't possibly have, and she's getting a taste of it, and she can't possibly have it. And she falls in love for the first time, and she can't possibly keep it. And she's still keeping a good attitude about everything. So it's just like a rough situation for both of them, I think.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah, you're right. Like, I really appreciate that Celia is getting to explore this whole world and also showing a great deal of apprehension for the life that she's about to live, and very much not excited to live that life, and very much wanting to stay on the Enterprise, and also accepting the fact that she can't stay there. It's like, oh girl, you are just juggling like a whole giant soup pot full of like conflicting feelings. So she did hold it together very, very well. So now, everybody's back in their quarters under armed guard with locks on and force fields and lasers pointing down on them. Right. So the Enterprise a couple hours later arrives at Daled 4, and Anya and Celia go to leave, and Anya makes it clear that she is not accompanying Celia down to the planet. And
which was a shocker for me. I was like, wait, what?
For me too. For me too. And they have this like very bittersweet goodbye where Anya is saying like, listen, I just really hope that you understand that everything that I did, as overpowering as I was, it was all just to keep you safe so that you can like fulfill your destiny and save this planet. So if I was too much, I'm sorry, but it's only because I care so much. And it was really sad. And I thought they were going to hug or something, but they didn't. They just kind of were like, okay, goodbye. Thank you. And walked away. But I was like, hug her or something. God. Although, whatever, different aliens, different whatever. But
yeah, different customs or something. But yeah, it was a very sweet conversation between the two of them. It was like a bittersweet goodbye, but there was no hard feelings at all. Anya was just like, I've tried to do my best. I'm going back to my home world, which is like the third moon over there or whatever. And you're going to do great. You're going to be a wonderful leader. And Celia's just like, you did a great job raising me. Thank you so much for everything you've done. And I do now feel ready, like with the preparations that we've had. So it's kind of like everything's on a good note. And then Anya even says like, I was never going to hurt Wesley. I just wanted to scare him. And she's just like, I know you were never going to hurt him because, I cared about him. And, so they kind of like buried the hatchet on all of their disputes that they've been having over the past 4 hours or whatever on the ship. And they say their goodbyes and you're just like, wow, okay. So then Celia goes to the transporter and then Worf comes to escort Anya personally to transporter 6. And I was like, oh, hey, we got another transporter, I guess, because they're going to different places. They have to be in different transporters, which again, not true. That's not how those have to work, but whatever. Whatever.
That is irrelevant, but whatever. They've got the rooms. They might as well use them.
Might as well use some of those other transporters.
Just for funsies, we're going to go all the way to transporter room 31 and we're going to use that one because we got to knock the cobwebs off of that transporter pad.
We got to dust that bad boy off. And so we have another conversation between Worf and Anya where it's like, no hard feelings. We're both warriors. We're both protectors. Like, hopefully one day we'll battle again, like, but this time on the same side. And I actually thought, which was a fine closure for that scene. But I also kind of wanted them to be like, I hope to fight you again in battle, because that's more Klingon. And I feel like that's also maybe more Anya, right? To be like, someday maybe we'll test each other's strengths and just see what we can do. And I feel like that would just be like, they'd both be like, yeah, I can respect that. Like, one day let's fight.
Yes.
And just see what we can do.
I really liked that ending. And I liked it even just as it was, like, perhaps we can fight on the same side. And Worf's response was something along the lines of, it would be an honor. And I was like, yes, this is what I like to see. Like, I like Worf to find another like warrior spirit that he can like be his best warrior self with. And considering it's this like small old looking lady, it's like, dude, hell yeah. Like, that's amazing. Don't forget though, Celia does go to say goodbye to Wes, but he is like way too hurt by all the deception. And he did say like, I loved you, And I was like, whoa, you've only known her for like 15, 20 minutes.
and he's 16. So he really did love her. And she's also 16. So she really did love him. Like,
yes,
as far as their concept of love, they totally were in love. And
yes.
They were both, it was both their first love for both of them.
Yeah.
And their first kiss for both of them.
Yeah. And you never forget those. So it's like, okay, there you go, Wesley. You have this like beautiful, smart girl who's like destined for these great things and she can't stay. So it's kind of the perfect little taste of love for you because she has to leave in a given amount of time. So as she's on her way out, Wesley reconsiders and he rushes to the transporter room with a bowl of this chocolate mousse. Again, with no spoon, she just sticks her finger in it. And I just went, oh, come on. Like, that part of me was like, no. Why
do we not have spoons? But that being said, like, I'm really glad that he went, because in that scene where he's just like so pissed and he's like, I want you to leave. Like, and she's like, let's not leave. Let's not end like this because we're never going to be able to get this moment back, which was really wisdom beyond her years to know that that's true. Because most kids that age are just like, our love will conquer all. Yeah. And she is like a lot more wise than that.
Wrong.
False. And so I just like, I wrote in my notes like, oh my gosh, he missed the chance to say goodbye to the love of his life. He's going to regret that forever. Like, he's just leaving it on such a sour note. And then when he rushes back in with the ice cream, I was like, oh, thank God. Like, this is a much better memory for him to have of like, we actually said goodbye on good terms.
Yes. Yeah. Because if he hadn't said goodbye on good terms, it would become a we'll always have Paris all over again, where he's in the holodeck trying to relive that
that
and like
moment.
change the goodbye.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So she says goodbye to him and they end on really good terms. And she says, okay, well, I want you to leave now because I cannot transform down to the planet in this body. I need to be in my true form. And I want you to remember me like as I am now. And he's like, well, don't worry, I will. So she transforms into this like being of light and energy, which is really beautiful. And he's very wowed by it. And he says engage and sends her down. And I love again that Guinan and Wes are sort of partnered up at the end where he's like, I'm never going to love like that again. And you always expect somebody to be like, don't worry, you will. But Guinan in her infinite wisdom is like, you won't. Every time there will be others. And every time you'll be in love, it will feel different. And you will never get this one again. And I was like, damn, Guinan, she is like the guidance counselor we all need, especially during COVID.
Seriously. And then she says to him, like, right now it hurts, but eventually that part will go away and you'll just remember the good parts, which is grief 101, right? Like when you are through grieving, if that's a thing, that other side of grief is when that pain goes away and you just have the good memories, good or bad memories, but you can just kind of look on them with fondness without that bitterness. And that's exactly what he's going to experience. So she even just kind of lets him know this feeling you're having is legit. It's going to be there, but it's not going to be there forever. And eventually it'll turn into something where you just have all those good memories and this love will not be the same. You'll get different loves. You'll get new loves. Yes. Yeah, it was just a really beautiful scene.
It really was. And I thought it was just the perfect way to sort of wrap up this episode with, you know, Guinan consoling this boy who's experiencing his very first heartbreak of many, you know, and it was a very sweet moment and it was lovely. Do you have any final thoughts on this episode?
You know, I just really loved this episode and it is a Wesley heavy episode, but it doesn't feel annoying. It wasn't like the episode before where we had the traveler and it was like, Wesley's very special. And you're like, why? And it's just kind of weird. This one was just like a slice of life. And that's what I love about the show is when it starts to get these slices of life where we get to really know the characters. And I feel like in this episode, we got to really know Wesley and Guinan. And that was just really cool. What about you? Final thoughts?
You know, I kind of feel the same way. I was reading in some of the behind the scenes stuff that some of the writers thought that like the love scene or the love like with him and Celia was like a little cheesy because they're like, you know, by 15, 16, you're like trying to get laid and this and that. And they're just sharing chocolate and having a very innocent kiss. But I thought it was appropriate for Wesley's character because he's not that kind of kid that's like cruising chicks. You know, he's just stumbles across this girl and is infatuated with her. And he's trying to proceed in a way that you do when you don't want to screw up. You know what I mean? Like you move slow so that you don't blow it and when you're really into someone. And that's exactly what he did. And I thought it was very sweet. For those of you who are not Wesley fans, then maybe give this one a skip. But if you don't mind Wesley, I love this episode. I really do. I really do. Guys, next week, speaking of Dr. Pulaski, we are going into season 2.
Which we were not speaking of Dr. Pulaski.
Well, the filters will filter out any of the Contagion. And I think it's really interesting that season 2, episode 11 is entitled Contagion. So we will see you next week. Thank you for listening.
Bye. Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.